I don't know what happened with this software program. That's ridiculous. Anyway, I'm Sean Reynolds for Sportsnet, folks. About to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after the Winnipeg Jets' 10th straight loss and a game that started to look like a little bit of a carbon copy during this 10-game losing streak. 3 games that I count so far where the Winnipeg Jets had a lead late, allowed the tying goal, and then lost it in overtime. Started this losing streak with that against the Ottawa Senators. Bookended in the middle there somewhere. I don't know if it was game 6 of the losing streak or something. Maybe game 5. I don't know, against the Minnesota Wild. They did the same thing, and then they do it again on this night here tonight. I know they blew the lead against the Toronto Maple Leafs. That one didn't make it to overtime. So I don't know if you're happy with the point here tonight. I don't think anyone is happy with things going the way they're going. I want to get into something because I was driving home on the way here and I talked briefly with Ken. I'm going to try and be as quick as possible because Ken's in the green room. And if we want him to keep coming back on the show, thanks for having me. We should probably get him into the show more often and a little bit earlier and not make him wait in the green room, even though he's all over those green Skittles and M&Ms while he's in there. I just, the idea of what bad teams look like, last place teams, 10 in a row lost teams, I said this before. I've made this point that they're bad. They don't communicate well. They give up on each other. They have bad attitudes. They're swinging sticks and smashing the boards, and they're arguing with each other, and things aren't going well. And you don't see any of that from the Winnipeg Jets. And to me, there was part of me that's just going down, and I've asked the questions about it. And there's a part of me that's going into this and thinking, well, like, what is it? Why do the Winnipeg Jets keep losing? And is this hard luck? Is this tough luck? Is it bounces? Cole Perfetti suggested it was bounces. In my opening in that Ottawa game, I talked about the Plinko chips going this way and that way, contemplating the idea of teams making their own bounces. But then I started thinking to myself, and I went into this game here tonight and I took a look at the, some of the numbers in here. And I'm not saying that shots are the be all and end all. But what I am saying is if, there's going to be a lot of people here who say the Winnipeg Jets deserved a better fate and they're in this and all that kind of stuff. And then when you go and you look at the stat line, you'll notice that Vegas outshot Winnipeg by double in the second period, by double in the third period. I thought it was a fairly dominating performance by the Golden Knights in the third period of that game. I thought the Winnipeg Jets, were fairly opportunistic. First goal, great goal. We'll get into that kind of stuff. We'll break it down. Second goal, Luke Schenn himself kind of admitted, like those kind of goals, they usually get tipped in. You don't often float one from the red line and have a fairly clear view for the goaltender and score on those goals. So I take a look at that and I think it's a little bit of a gift for the Winnipeg Jets that they get that second goal. And then they go out, they get the late lead, and then boom, it's in the back of their net. Now they lose in overtime. And I would be a little bit more prone. I guess I'm trying to correct what I'm seeing here because it is odd. It is odd for a team not to fall apart, bust apart at the seams, and that be the reasoning for them losing 10 straight games. So it is, I still say that it's odd. That's what's happening with the Winnipeg Jets here, where they're in every game, where they find themselves on the other side of losses and things like that. And people will say, well, bad teams find ways to lose and all that kind of stuff. And I think cliches most often in sports don't explain things. And so how do I explain this? And I just got to thinking this. And the one thing that I think the vast majority of people would agree with during this losing streak, and to be honest, for a good chunk of the year, is that, and this is going to be the thing where people say, bad teams find ways to lose or whatever. I don't know that it's necessarily bad teams finding ways to lose, but I think what you can consistently agree on in so many of these games in this 10-game stretch, and maybe to the point that it's been consistent across those 10 games, is that when the Winnipeg Jets are playing a team, and it doesn't even matter, it's the Vegas Golden Knights, it's the Minnesota Wild, it's the Ottawa Senators, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs, go on and on and on, the teams that they've been playing here. When the moments that matter most are happening, the Winnipeg Jets find themselves to be the second best team at that moment. Consistently. And that's over this last 10-game stretch, but it's been over the month of December. and it's been over the month of November that have taken the Winnipeg Jets and buried them in the basement of this. And I'm going to get in a little bit deeper about like how they end up in those things. I want to kind of break it down later. Like I said, I want to get Ken in here, and I'm going to get him in right away. But I just want to end with this point. At your best, if you're not better than the other team, the answer for me is simple. The Winnipeg Jets keep losing because at their best, they're not better than the other team. And it's as simple as this. The Winnipeg Jets are not better. They're not good enough. As good as they've been, as good as they've held things together, they've shown time and time again that when the margins come out, they are not able to get over the margin. They're not good enough. And that's bearing itself out over and over again. The consistency at some point, or sometimes the results can be a fluke. I'm not at the point where I think that this is a fluke anymore. The Winnipeg Jets and I'll say it like this. You go through those 10 games that they've lost in a row and ask yourself, how many times were the Winnipeg Jets in a position to win that game and didn't win? And you could say, well, they deserved a better fate. But how many times in those 10 games can you honestly say to yourself, the Winnipeg Jets were the better team in that game and they lost? I don't think it's very often. I don't think it's very often at all. So what we're seeing here is a consistency of results in a consistency of output and performance, in that, yes, the Winnipeg Jets are good enough to keep things close against a lot of teams in this league, but they're not good enough to beat a lot of teams in this league. That's how you end up in last place. That's how you end up in a 10-game losing streak. And that's how you end up in the position there. And I should have said off the top of this, that, of course, I was inviting you in. You know what? I pulled up screeching tires on the sidewalk, and I didn't even ask you to hop in. I just threw the door open, and you hopped in, and I took you on the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive. That's that. I'm going to shut her down now because Ken needs to get in here. Before I do, just going to say finding the right vehicle can feel like a big decision, but the team at Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent make it easy. They'll help you find the perfect fit from their wide selection of new and pre-owned Toyotas, all backed by great service and honest advice. So if you're ready for something new, stop by Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent or start your search online at jptoyotaregent.com. All right, time to bring in the man with the best music in the business, folks. Here comes Kenny. I wanted to drop something on you, and there's a lot of things that Renny is talented at. I think, my ad read for the folks at Jim Pattison Toyota, it must be good, and I'm going to tell you why. My boy Colin, my camera guy, told me today. He said, "Hey, I'm coming to you this spring. He's going to go buy a Toyota Tacoma." He's buying a Toyota Tacoma, which has been the ad read for the month of December, for the month of November. I think I wet his whistle with those reads. He said, "I've been watching your show, and I wanted for you to know, let me know who I should go talk to down there." So I'm going to put Colin in touch. Our guy Johnny Anderson was talking about that. One of the camera guys down at the. So I'm glad to see some people are going down there because we know that the deals are great down there, and we know that the people are great down there. What we do know is Colin is not a sharp-dressed man like us. You don't want to know why, Ken? Because he hasn't gone on down to Vittorio Rossi to take care of that business. And he's a camera guy. You can't expect it from camera guys. Probably doesn't make sense to be suited up like we are, but it makes sense for you to be suited up, folks. So head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys. He could even make Colin look good, Frankie and the boys. They could take care of that business because they can do pretty much anything. Ken, I just want you to launch right into it. Your takeaways from this game and the 10th straight loss for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, I mean, Scott O'Neill used the term Groundhog Day. I don't think it's one that we've leaned into too much, but it's happening a lot. Jets finding a way to lose again in this one. Some good things again, but you got to close out games. I mean, the boa constrictor has been removed from the building, kind of missing in action. Jets get a lead like that, and again, we know this is a new season, but Sean, really good teams find a way to lock that down, even after 2-1 or 2-0, even after going up 3-2. I mean, yes, I mean, you talked about Cole Perfetti talking about the bounces, and the tying goal is obviously an unfortunate bounce for the Winnipeg Jets. It is a point shot from Ben Hutton that literally hits the stick of Brandon Saad in front of the net, where he was actually being checked properly by the Jets defender. And the puck doesn't land flat. It doesn't go to the side. It lands right on the stick of Riley Smith. Some folks said he was uncovered. Well, you're not expecting that puck to bounce there. So I don't see that as a coverage issue, Sean. I see that as a bad bounce. But Sean, that's just even. I mean, Luke Shen got a seeing eye special from the blue line. Ben Hutton's hit someone and goes in front. I mean, that's a game you got to close out. We saw a similar story in Toronto. Goal late in the second period from Mark Stone. Was there a bad bounce? Sure. It kind of bounced around, hit a few skates along the way, but Stone is in the right position to score. I mean, penalty kill has not been sharp enough for the Jets during this 10-game losing skid. Their details have not been good enough. For a period and change, the Jets were very stifling defensively. But then Vegas found another gear, Sean, quite frankly, and the Jets had very few answers. In terms of generation, I mean, we've talked about this ample times so far, but Natural Stat Trick had the Jets for one high danger chance at 5-on-5, Sean. And it's got to be the goal, right? I mean, it's the goal by Perfetti.
Yeah.
And outside of that, there was just not enough taken care of. There weren't enough. There were very few sustained zone time shifts. Forecheck was mostly ineffective. Not much on the rush. So yeah, I mean, there's parts, and Sean, you and I have been talking about this. There seems to be, in the stretch where the Jets are in right now, on the nights where they defend well, they don't generate enough. And on the nights they generate a lot, they don't defend well. So that's not a winning formula. There was just a comment about Jonathan Toews. I mean, that's 4 assists now in 6 games for Toews. So there is some secondary scoring happening there. Cole Perfetti snaps his 16-game drought. So that line, I thought, actually looked pretty good, Sean, at various times in the game. They were one of the few lines that had, I don't know that the numbers were exceptional. They weren't, but they are a line that, generated a little bit more than most of the other lines, but they were even. They were 1-1 for scoring chances for and against. But Sean, here's the problem for all the people screaming from the rooftops about breaking up the top line. Top line without Gabe Vilardi today got out scoring chances or shots for 11 or shots for 1, shots against 11. And on the blended shift where Vilardi came onto the ice, Kyle Connor scored within about 10 seconds. So this is not to say that obviously those people are wrong. Don't break them up, but it's not as simple as saying those other guys will drive other lines. And Gabe Vilardi did drive the line, but Alex Iafallo, despite being a defensive conscience, didn't get a lot of flow and continuity going offensively with that line. That's natural. I mean, Alex is a very good defensive player. And yes, he's played with skilled players before in LA with Kopitar and done a nice job there too. I'm not saying he's not doing the job, but that line didn't generate anything in this game, Sean, quite frankly. Yet you look up and they had a goal, but it wasn't from that line. So again, there's still a bunch of guys that need to get going. And I mean, yes, Vlad Nemestikov had a nice scoring chance in the first period, but then you didn't really notice him much. I do think he got involved a little bit more physically in the game. That's what he needs to do. But again, he's not playing at the level he needs to be playing at. And again, that's the case for a number of different players. And Sean, that's the reason why the Jets are finding ways to lose. They're not being carried by one or two individuals. And The human eraser had another sub 900 game. So again, this is not blaming Connor Hellebuyck, but it's another night where the save percentage is below 900. That's 6 of the last 7 games, and the one game that it was 900, it was 900. So
Okay.
that I'm not blaming Hellebuyck, but this was another night where they could have used an extra save, and at the flip side of the coin, Jets didn't make it nearly hart enough at the other end for Carter Hart.
Okay. So, I'm going to jump in. There's a bunch of things to go in that different direction, which means you did a great job on the buffet there, Kenny. I wanted to say this about Connor Hellebuyck. So his first goal, the first goal against is a pass across. The puck gets through. There's a guy sitting right there. He has to dive and try and get his stick on it. It's a tap in for Mark Stone. Okay. The second goal is a pass across. That's an extremely high degree of difficulty shot to stop. Boom, it's in the back of the net. The next one is him making a stop. A guy's left alone. It's a loss of coverage. Tap it into the wide open net. It's in the back of the net. Not on him. And the last goal at the end of the game is a ripper of a shot that he's just most goalies are not stopping.
And it hits Hurdle on the way there.
And yes, and then there's a guy behind him to put it in if it needs to be done. So this is one of the things that I wanted to say this. So you're right. He's sub 900. And this is why we defended.
And I'm not blaming him.
This is why we defended Comrie for all those times, because Connor Hellebuyck has now lost 9 straight games, folks. And
which is lunacy.
This game is not on Connor Hellebuyck. It's interesting because, for the most part at the beginning of the game, he wasn't really challenged. Like we were trying to find, and you found a good one earlier on. I think was it on Marner right at the end of the second period. He gets a shot off of a rebound and Connor Hellebuyck makes a nice kick save. And it was one of the few shots that wasn't just of the garden variety type of shots. But the problem is when the Jets are allowing opportunities, they're allowing the kind of opportunities, and I'll say this, they did not allow those opportunities last year. Like 4 of those or 3 of those goals tonight are the kind of goals that you rarely saw last year. And this is why I used to talk about this, and I know I'll bring this up, and I know a whole bunch of you people will get upset that I brought it up again. But this is why last year I said Connor Hellebuyck was a beneficiary of the Winnipeg Jets system, because this is what Connor Hellebuyck looks like when that system is not in place. It's hard to be a goaltender who's above 900 when you have to face 3 tap-in goals per game. It's not easy to do that, right? So when I talked about that last year, I think this game is a perfect example of what I talked about. Connor Hellebuyck didn't have to face the degree of difficulty the last couple of years with the Winnipeg Jets that the vast majority of goalies in the league did. That's one of the reasons he had. I'm not saying he's not a great goaltender. He was a great goaltender behind a great system. And everyone tried to, or a lot of people tried to make it sound like it was just hell. He was running away with it. He was doing this. He was doing that. He was a day at the spa every day for the vast majority of the games last year. And that's not the case anymore. And this is what it looks like for Connor Hellebuyck. This game isn't on Connor Hellebuyck. These are tough things to stop. But if you are waiting for Connor Hellebuyck to be, if you've been suggesting that the Winnipeg Jets are a team riding off their goaltender over the last number of years and that Connor Hellebuyck has carried the Winnipeg Jets, he's not carrying them right now. He's not making superhuman saves to stop those kind of things. And to be honest with you, he didn't make a lot of superhuman saves last year. He stayed within his system and behind a team that didn't allow him to be challenged often. He had big numbers off of that. He won a Hart Trophy off of it, okay? That's not there anymore. That team does not exist. And I wanted to translate that into Ken about you saying them finding ways to lose. This to me comes back to not having the speed they had last year, but it's the balance that's created by not having the speed, because what the speed did last year was it allowed the Winnipeg Jets to forecheck, take the puck away. And I'm going to tell you this right now. Anyone who's played hockey knows it is more tiring to defend than it is to be on offense. Okay? Because when you're on offense, I get to take the puck and I get to do this and Ken doesn't have to be racing to react to someone. Ken gets to be nice and creative, and he gets to go and tuck his way over there, just like Connor Hellebuyck does. If you ever not Connor Hellebuyck, Kyle Connor does. If you ever trained a camera on Kyle Connor and watched him in the offensive zone, it would be a speed burst to get the puck, and then he'd move it, and then he'd slowly weave his way to a different spot, and then he'd get the puck, and he'd speed his game up, and then he'd move it, and then he'd slowly get into a different spot. What defending looks like is constantly reacting and diving and trying to get at other teams against the players with the puck, because the Winnipeg Jets can't forecheck like they did last year, because they don't have the speed. It means they don't have the puck as often. Because they don't have the puck as often, they're defending more. Because they're defending more, it means they need to work harder throughout the game. And because they're working harder throughout the game, they do not have the energy to pull off a full 60. You want to know why the Winnipeg Jets can't pull off a full 60, and they've been talking about it before? It's because they're working too hard to be able to do it. Last year, the Jets looked like this speedy, crazy, good team, and they were. But that speed allowed them to find rest within the game that they do not get this year. What that means is when the tight moments come at the end of games, you do not have a Winnipeg Jets team that is on their feet, ready to go, on their toes, ready to go, and really, really fast. What you've got is a team that has spent so much time defending throughout the game, getting outshot by double in the second period, outshot by double in the third period, and now they're tired. And now that's when mistakes happen. That's when breakdowns happen. That's when the other team is elevating their game and the Jets can't keep up. That's what it looks like. You want to know what speed looks like? It's not losing puck races. It's not this and that. It's the idea of the speed tipping the balance and mean you don't have to defend as much. The Jets defend all the time now. And because they do, last year they didn't have to. So when they did defend, they were right able to do so because they weren't working as hard as the other team. The other team was always working harder against the Jets because they were always reacting to the Jets. The Jets don't get the puck as much anymore because they're not as fast. Because they don't get the puck as much, they are defending all the time. They're tired by the end of the games. That's why they can't hold leads. We knew, based on my theories earlier in the year about Nick Ehlers being gone, that they weren't going to be a comeback team like they were in years past. We didn't know that they wouldn't be able to hold leads like they did in the past. That's why they're not holding leads.
Right. And this is simple. I mean, last year the Jets had the zone time advantage a lot of the time because they were so sound defensively, which was what you were getting at. Structure hasn't been as sound. And yeah, and I mean, just to be clear, I mean, when I said Hellebuyck hasn't been the human eraser, I wasn't knocking Hellebuyck. I'm just saying that, his save percentage is down 25%, and a lot of that is to do with the environment. We're not disputing that. We know that that's the case. We know the Jets are defending more. It's just something that, like everything else, I mean, the Jets are letting Hellebuyck down in front of them, and again, it's made life more difficult for a lot of people, and that's part of the reason why they haven't been they're not as close to being a lockdown hockey team right now. And that's why they're lacking confidence, Sean. I mean, their record in 1-goal games is poor. So guess what? When they get in a 1-goal game, I'm not saying they're, expecting to lose, but they're not, last year they went in knowing they were going to win. This year, you can't have that feeling when you've lost as often as the Jets have, and in that manner and those fashions. So, yeah, I mean, they're just not even close when it comes to their defensive play. But a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're defending so much more, and that's part of the issue here for sure. And yeah, I mean, just quickly, I mean, people saying that Vegas isn't trying. This is pristine roofing wake up territory. I think it's for Nick. Vegas has lost 5 games in a row, Nick. Of course they're trying. There's no team that doesn't come in trying to win a game. They're not trying to make the Jets look better. Vegas needed to win the game. They lost 5 in a row. So, sorry. Anyways, I don't like to...
So let's give the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. That means it's time to give North and Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 1-204-981-6289. He's the one who you want down at your place to take a look at all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 1-204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake-up call. You will be glad that you did. And Kenny gets to give out the Pristine Roofing wake-up call to anyone he wants, because Kenny is the original wake up guy. Like, that's his tagline. That's and
I'm not even sorry. Just quickly, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Vegas put Pavel Dorofeev on the third line. They played Mitch Marner at center. Like, this is not a team that's just going through the motions here. They're trying to win a division, and they love winning here. They love sticking it to the Jets. This is a team that it's part of the rivalry. Like, they're not just going through the motions. They don't want to be the team that the Jets snap their losing skid against. And they play, like, I think that the Hayden Fleury incident shook up Vegas to a degree, and it shook up the Jets for a stretch of time also. But anyways, sorry.
So I want to respond to that, and I do want to say this, and I touched on it a little bit at the beginning of like, I think the Jets were lucky to be where they were. I think they were lucky to be in the position they were. We can say whatever we want about the Jets having the lead, but I take a look at the way that they executed that game. To your point, the lack of quality chances that they'd built up. If the Jets had won this game, if they had held on and won, this game is not a template for, okay, now we just roll that game out over and over again and we win. And I have to say this, Ken, one of these times, and I don't want it to not be a united front, but I do have to agree. I don't think that the Vegas Golden Knights weren't trying to win, but I do think there was a very definitive kind of lackadaisical effort by them to start the game. And at some point, it felt to me like they were sitting on the couch eating Cheetos and got up and dusted themselves off and started going. Like, there was a clear point in that game where the Vegas Golden Knights just took that game over and took it to a place that they couldn't get to. There was a breakup in there in the shift that you're talking about where Kyle Connor gets his goal, but this is a 2-0 game the Winnipeg Jets have, and you could clearly see at some point the Vegas Golden Knights started pushing, and they didn't stop pushing until the end of the game, until overtime. And so I don't know. I don't think that they weren't trying. I think the Vegas Golden Knights are a team trying to figure things out right now, and sometimes it can be difficult to get your best effort. But I do definitely think there's a very big difference between the first 30 minutes of the Vegas Golden Knights in that game and the last 30 minutes of the Golden Knights in that game. So I do look at it, and I do think there may be a point there in that the version of the Vegas Golden Knights that the Winnipeg Jets were beating in that game was not the best version of the Vegas Golden Knights, and the better version of the Vegas Golden Knights was the one that we saw at the back end of that game, and it looked like the Winnipeg Jets couldn't hang with that team.
Yeah, I mean, then that's totally fine. But like Vegas had also, they've been by their standards, they've been kind of in one also, not to the point of being 9 losses in a row and now 10, but for them, 5 losses in a row is a big deal. I mean, that's not normal outcomes for a team that has championship aspirations. So,
right.
And also, we've talked about it a ton, and Sean, you were there this morning when Bruce Cassidy said it again. He said it before. Pete DeBoer used to say it before. Kelly McCrimmon has said it before. There's Manitoba kids in this lineup, and if you look at the sheet tonight, Sean, there's Brett Howden with a blistering one-timer. There's Mark Stone getting his team in the game. One shift after he took a puck in the ear that was deflected, or jaw, ear, wherever area it caught him.
Yeah.
Like, Mark Stone could have gone to the room and kind of shaken it off. Instead, he went to the bench, got ready, and came on the ice and scored an important goal to help his team get moving. So that's why I say, I mean, Vegas is never coming through here saying that they can give a half-assed effort and beat the Jets, even when the Jets are in a funk like they are right now. So anyways, that's it's probably an overreaction, but I watch the Vegas Golden Knights closely. They're not a team that is sleepwalking right now. They've got to find their game, and they're also missing a bunch of guys too, and important players on their team. So that's why we're not out here saying, hand out a bunch of balloons and participation medals that the Jets hung with them for a couple periods. That's not what we're saying either.
I wanted to bring in some of the Flame and Comfort comments here. I'm just trying to operate this. Okay. Do this. Okay, one of these that came in, I think it was maybe the Nick that you gave the
it is Nick,
wake up call. He says the other teams are taking it easy on the Jets. That's why it feels like we are close. Last year when we limped by a St. Louis, changes needed to be made. I wanted to bring this up because of the point. I actually do think that that was nowhere near the best version of the Vegas Golden Knights, and that's the team that the Jets were competing and beating against. And then when the different version of them showed up, that was a place that the Jets just couldn't seem to get to, and that's kind of to the original point. of what I was trying to say is the Winnipeg Jets just consistently aren't good enough. That's the one thing that's been consistent about this. I'm trying to find where the other one that I had was. This one. This can launch us into our next topic of Robert Starr, who says Toews has been one of the better Jets forwards the last 5 to 6 games. Now that's going to launch the next place that we take this and maybe talk about that line. And it's very, very worthy of the Flame and Comfort hot take, the good kind of hot take by the folks. Well, that's your hot take, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. And when you get down there, you will see it is one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside, folks. You can visit Flame and Comfort. They will take care of it for you. Gorgeous vision. Gorgeous pass by Jonathan Toews to Cole Perfetti to set up the first goal of the game. I'll say this. It's been my opinion. It's been my theory that Jonathan Toews post-Christmas was benefiting from the rest that he had over that 5-game stretch, and that I thought that we would start to see his play tail off. Like I thought earlier in the year, we saw him build to around game 10, and then he plateaued and started to kind of regress a little bit, I thought. And then maybe it wasn't even regressing. Maybe it was that he reached a level he could get to, and the rest of the league kept getting better. He is belying my theory that it was all about that 5 days rest. Maybe there's a little bit more time here, but right now, Jonathan Toews looks to be playing the best hockey that he's played this year, and he's still going with it and starting to make me question if there's a level that he's reached now that he continued going at, and we're going to see a much different version of him in January.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the taxing nature of the schedule, could present a few challenges. And, during this stretch, that's 4 assists in 6 games. The game in Ottawa, he wasn't as effective. It was at the tail end of a 3-4, but he still is getting around better. And he had a great interview with Paul Edmonds on the CJB pregame show where, Jonathan was quite forward about it. It wasn't as instinctive for him as it used to be, which is natural for a guy who had been out for 2.5 years. So I think for him, I think he's back to playing the game. Not that he's not thinking, because he's a deep thinker, but I think things are coming a little bit more naturally in terms of his reads and where he wants to be within the system. And he's always had the ability to distribute. I've talked about this throughout the entire stretch of time when he was struggling offensively, Sean. He'd set up a bunch of guys, but there was no finish on his line. That's not to take him off the hook. He needed to play better, but there were moments within games where he was using that vision that you referenced. But today's pass, the pass that he makes on the back end through the legs of Jacob Magna, this is, galaxy brain kind of stuff. Really good job by Gabe Vilardi to get the play started in the corner on the cycle, but real elite vision by Toews. He saw Perfetti in an open spot. Perfetti backdoor, easy backhand tap in for his 3rd goal, snapping a long drought. But Sean, this is why we talked about this earlier on. Roy Mack mentioned it. Well, yes, this is one of the lines I was thinking about, because this is sort of the Scott O'Neill envisioned Cole Perfetti and Jonathan Toews clicking together. They didn't play together at the beginning because of the injury to Perfetti. Toews, after the strong start, when Perfetti was back, he went into a bit of a cold patch. So neither one of them was going. So they got split up, but now they're back and they're trying to get some of those things going. And as we've talked about, Gabe Vilardi is playing at a level where he can be a really good mix with those guys. So again, it's, some people are going to say, who cares, too little, too late, whatever. And that's your right to say that. But this is more like the Toews the Jets were envisioning. And of course, he's not at second line center production yet, but he's trending that direction. And Sean, we said this from the beginning, from the day he was signed and we did the show, he was going to be improving his game and after getting his legs underneath him. And now it's half a season. Now the key for Toews is to try to keep this up for the last 41 and then sort of see where it takes them. Because, to be frank, I said this at the beginning when the signing happened. I think it was Jonathan Toews' intention to come back and not just play this year and try to play one more. But when he went through the rough patch, some people were wondering if that were still the case. And some folks, even in our chat room, were suggesting, well, what if he retires? Well, that's not the way Jonathan's wired. Now, again, I can't speak to what his feelings are towards next year, but if it goes the way it's been going, maybe he'll want to play again. But that's a story for another time. But to your point, Sean, he's moving better, moving the puck well, and he's the more important thing for me, Sean. He's defending better. That was a huge issue at the start of the year.
Yeah.
Playing in a different system, getting scored on way too often at 5-on-5. Those plays aren't happening. And Sean, you referenced it a lot at the time. That line used to get caught in their own end, and then it was in there for a long time. Those extended shifts are not happening, and that's part of the reason is Jonathan's ability to defend and make the right read in the D zone. So it's an important development. Now, some people would say they would have preferred if it was 2 months earlier, but none of those people were going through what Toews is going through in his comeback. But again, he's on the right path, and if he continues to play this way, it'll be interesting to see what transpires in the days and weeks leading up to the deadline, and see where the Jets are and see where things go from there.
I mean, honestly, the way things have gone so far with him this year, I need a lot more of a runway of him doing this to believe the idea that it's like, okay, it's later in the year. We said he was going to be better later in the year. Now it's later in the year. He's been good for a stretch of time here. And that's why I'm still apprehensive about this. But what I will say, and I did want to make this point, it felt to me that line I thought was the best line in the game for the Winnipeg Jets. But in the third period, I felt like that line kind of disappeared a little bit. And I don't know if that's, to my point about like defending more often and all those different kind of things, that you're going to get tired towards the end of the game. And if you're an older player, you're more likely to get tired. I'm not pinning it all on Jonathan Toews. There's two other guys on that line. But
Perfetti was taken off the line for a couple of shifts for Tanner Pearson.
Right. But at the beginning of that, I thought this was the first time, and I can't tell you how long, Ken, where I looked and thought they may have something going on as a line here, because, and I know it's not the first time they've tried Cole Perfetti and Jonathan Toews. It kind of felt new, though. Something about the way that they were playing off each other felt new. I thought Cole Perfetti actually looked really good this game. It was the first time, he ends up on the score sheet, and it's easy for us to come here and say, oh, great game by Cole Perfetti because he ended up on the score sheet. But I know that I turned to Christian Amel from CJOB at some point in the game, and I said, hey, I know he scored early, but I just always seem to be noticing Cole in this game. Like, he's where the puck is. He's all around it. He's involved in the play. He's making good plays. Maybe he slows down a little bit after he gets, pasted to the boards there pretty good. But the one thing I would say, Ken, is, I don't know how much of it has to do with the subtleties of Vilardi's game that allowed them to pop up. But the one thing that I thought was interesting was the idea, I think, is to take Vilardi off that top line and have him drive another line. He was the least noticeable of the three for me. I don't know about you. I'd like you to weigh in on that. But I don't know if that's just something that can be captured between Jonathan Toews and Cole Perfetti, something they've wanted to find in the past. They have, but maybe they're finding it now that could be taken forward. But give me your take on it, because I'll be honest, I'm not sure if it's the subtleties of Gabe Vilardi's game that helped drive that line, and those guys were just the ones that popped off of it because of the subtleties that Vilardi was doing. Or do you take away from that those guys were carrying enough on their own that you just move Vilardi back to the top line? Because to your point, I agree with you 100%. Alex Iafallo, I just didn't think did anything to help that top line on this night.
Yeah, or not enough anyway. And for me, I mean, I like Vilardi with Toews. I mean, we've talked about this before. It's why I suggested it with, I think, maybe even Morgan Barron at the time. Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I know we talked about the line blender a lot the other day, and this is another great example. Like, these are not the optimal lines either, right? So, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, personally, I think that you could give it a little bit more runway, but the other part of that is now, how long is, and like I said, you look up, Kyle Connor gets a goal, and that's fine, but the goal came when the three of them were together. So the facts are still the same. The Jets still need to have more than one line going or more than two lines going if they want to win more of these games. And right now, today wasn't a day for me where I thought that the Jets had three lines going. They barely had two lines going. So I liked Vilardi's game a lot. I thought he was very involved. both with the line he was on regularly, and then when he had the kind of overlapping shift with the top line. I think for me, Sean, sorry, I didn't mean to ramble and take the dog for a walk like Paul Maurice used to say, but I think I would move Vilardi back, and going against my better judgment and what I've said about Barron and Lowry, because I like them together. I think you could try the speed, maybe you try the speed of Barron to add that element with Toews and Perfetti, because again, Gabe does a lot of things incredibly well, but he's not a burner, and he's not the same kind of disruptive forward checker as either a Barron or sometimes Iafallo can be. So anyways, maybe you want a little bit of speed on that line, but again, I personally think that you should leave Barron with Lowry, which kind of leaves us back to square one. I mean, we had seen some progress from Gustav Nyquist in some recent games, Sean, the game against Detroit, especially at times, maybe against Ottawa, but I didn't see a lot from Nyquist today. Niederreiter, got to the net the one time, but yeah, I mean, so sorry, not to change the subject, but I just think that it's pertinent, and with Hayden Fleury's injury and the nature of it, I think the Jets now can get to the point where they'll consider calling up a forward from the Manitoba Moose.
Yeah.
In terms of maybe it's Parker Ford, maybe it's somebody else, a center, which would give them the option to sit one of those other centers down, or to move somebody else from center to the wall, or some of the things that we've been discussing previously, whether it's Parker Ford or David Gustafsson, that I'm not sure about. But, and again, it also could be Walker Duehr if they want to bring a winger up to add a little bit more speed. But anyways, I liked Vilardi's game a lot. I thought he was excellent. And the beauty of Vilardi is you could leave him, you could move him again, you could move him back up. He's going to play the same way, and I think he did a really good job in this game.
Well, hey, to the point of like, if I'm asking, well, was it those other guys who popped, or was it the subtleties of Gabe Vilardi's game?
I like Vilardi popped. Sorry,
Mike McDonald absolutely nails it here, saying Vilardi had 3 assists tonight. Got the job done there. Now he may not have scored, which is what he's known for, but he got the assists. But you can score a great rate with Cambrian Credit Union. Getting a mortgage doesn't have to throw you off your game. While you focus on home sweet home, our friends at Team Cambrian Credit Union take care of the mortgage part with their low rates. Whether you're looking for a new home, renewing, or making the switch, Cambrian is your mortgage MVP. They can help make the next season of your mortgage path easier and help save you money. Now, that is what we call a win. Head to cambrian.mb.ca/rates for more. And Ken, can you give Sweet Lou a shout out?
You bet. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
Question here asked, I didn't hear, was there an update on Fleury? So Tosk Live, what we can tell you is that he broke his nose. I'm still trying to figure out how that happened.
Visor came down when he hit. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So Ken's got it where I'm lacking. Just a real tough one. It was said by Cole Perfetti in the dressing room afterwards that he said it's not serious. So it was also said by their head coach, though, that there needed to be testing. He's staying overnight in the hospital. So that's what we can tell you about that situation. Clearly, he hit the back of his neck, back of his head. That's those are dangerous ones. I suffered, Ken, one of those. I suffered a bleeding from the brain concussion by going backwards into the boards like that, and did one of those things where you stand up and all of a sudden you're on the ground, and stand up and all of a sudden you're on the ground because you've got your bell rung and there's no pain receptors in your brain, so you don't know. All I knew is every time I stood up, I was suddenly falling on the ground. On the outside, that's when you're looking like Bambi and falling all over the place and stuff like that. It can be pretty darn dangerous to hit the back of your head like that. So we hope that he's okay. Should get you to weigh in on what you saw from that. I was reached out to by one of our viewers who said that's a suspendable play. Your take on that?
Suspendable for Kolasar?
Yes. Yeah.
No, that is not my take on that. My take on that is an unfortunate result. This is a play that happens kind of routinely. The issue is that Fleury loses his balance. Kolasar is as strong as a bull, so when he pushes you, you can't regain your balance. For me, yes, the player is slightly vulnerable, maybe, but this was not a targeted cheap shot by a visiting player. I mean, Keegan is a very honest player. You could tell he felt terrible. He went over to say something to Fleury when he was getting pushed off towards the ambulance. I mean, this is like I said, this to me is just an unfortunate result. Keegan went to, it's a routine hockey play, but the problem for Fleury is that he was so far away from the boards on the contact that he just kept picking up speed with his inertia. And, he did a great job of getting his neck down so that he didn't go, head first into the boards, but just the ferocity of which he went into the boards is what makes the back, injury that Scott O'Neill mentioned, back and neck, and, maybe there's some whiplash there. And Sean, the other scary part is that Fleury's like just a couple weeks removed from a concussion. So again, we're not going into the doctor's analysis because we won't know for a couple of days here. But I mean, Hayden's had some freak injuries. And for folks who have forgotten, Hayden saw his season get shut down a couple of years ago when he was in Tampa on a crazy play where he was skating backwards and he ran into a linesman and it shut him down for the entire season. So this is a guy who has run into some unfortunate circumstances, loves the game, and it just was an unfortunate play. I mean, I didn't see it as dirty at all, and I know you didn't ask me, but what transpired afterward? And again, I want to get your view because again, this is your area of expertise compared to me. I don't think that Adam Lowry saw it as a dirty play either.
Not at all.
We saw it during, great camera work on the broadcast. Keegan Kolasar and Adam Lowry were talking during the TV timeout, with their mouths or gloves covering their mouths. But Adam wasn't yelling at Keegan Kolasar saying, "I'm going to kill you for what you did." They were saying, "What happened requires a response. Will you drop the gloves?" So that's what they did. It's two honorable guys. I saw some people say this is just a, stupid fight, staged fight. I mean, it's a response to the hit.
People are entitled to their opinion. Yeah.
And that's fine. But I mean, that a staged fight has something that has nothing to do with the play. This is a response to the play that happened. And even though it's not a dirty play, and they decided to handle it. And after that, it got handled. And again, you could see great camera work in the penalty box. Adam says to Keegan after, "Thanks for going." And he nods his head and says, "No problem." And then they both carried on their way. It wasn't simply over. Luke Shen caught Keegan Kolasar in the neutral zone. And then Keegan Kolasar, he didn't complain about it. He got up and he rocked Vlad Nemestikov. So
yes,
it's a player playing
and pointed. Did he not or did he turn and talk to Shen afterwards? Because I don't know. That is Kolasar turned and said, "That's on you. Like I went after him because of what you did there." Always. I like this.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
So the initial point of contact on the hit is almost at the face-off dot. This is nowhere near boarding. This is nowhere near anything. And I know that it was the person who reached out to me on Twitter, and they may have reached out to you as well. It was one of those things where it was mentioned is on this, every single time something happens, he's up in arms. Right. And that's, I was going to engage on Twitter, and then I thought it's just no point going down this road. There's no intention to this. I will say this. Fleury finds himself in a little bit of a vulnerable spot. And he pushes a guy who's in a vulnerable spot, but it's not necessarily a guy's job not to finish his check when a guy twists his own feet up, right? I don't think for a second Keegan Kolasar thinks, man, if I push this guy hard enough, he's going to go sliding into the boards and he's going to be defenseless. I think it's the result of what happens there. You and I both know Keegan Kolasar. He's a good Manitoba boy. I have miles of respect for Keegan Colasar as a person, as a hockey player. He is not the kind of player who goes out and tries to injure people. His reaction talking to Fleury before he leaves the ice, I think, is classy. Scott Arniel touched on it afterwards. And basically you could tell Scott Arniel was talking about how he thought Keegan Colasar stood up for something like that. So if you're not intending to do something and now you've got to fight Adam Lowry, and you just say, okay, here we go, I'm going to take my medicine, I think there's honor in that. Now, I want to say this. I get all the people who think that those staged fights are stupid and they don't like them. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm not saying you're wrong. I personally, from my experience playing the game, think that there's value to those kind of things. Adam Lowry is setting down the thing that, listen, whether you meant to do it or not, there's a price to pay when one of my guys gets hurt in a situation like that, and you're just going to have to come to that. And Keegan Colasar was like, yep, I'm fine with that. And I wanted to kind of take this into a little bit of a different direction, Ken. I want to take this to the place where we were talking about my take on Logan Stanley, where I know a whole bunch of you didn't like that take. I think that this just kind of shows that, and I wanted to touch on the fact that Logan Stanley talked about it afterwards. And I asked Logan Stanley about whether or not he thought that Brady Tkachuk was going to drop his gloves. He had them down low. And did you think he was going to drop his gloves and that's why you went at it? And his answer was essentially along the lines of, Brady's a guy who knows how to handle himself, and I wanted to get the punch in first. And I think that was a sucker punch. I think most people, if they were being truly honest with themselves, would agree with that. And I think that that is the main driver behind people getting sucker punched, is someone that wants to get the punch in first and end the fight before it starts because they're not interested in getting punched, or they're maybe afraid of what's going to happen in that. So I think what you saw from Logan Stanley there was him trying to kill a fight before it started because he's worried about what Brady Tkachuk can do. I personally think that Adam Lowry is the absolute North Star of how to handle these things. And I think if I were Logan Stanley, I would be watching in these situations, because everyone needs to remember in this situation here, Adam Lowry and Keegan Colasar have fought before. Adam Lowry and Keegan Colasar fought in the playoffs a number of years back in Bones' first year when the Vegas Golden Knights knocked the Winnipeg Jets out of the playoffs. Keegan Colasar fought in that game, and he caught Adam Lowry, and he hurt him, and he dazed him, and he won that fight against Adam Lowry. Adam hasn't lost many fights, but he's already lost a fight to Keegan Colasar, and he knows what it's like to get tagged by Keegan Colasar, and he knows that Keegan Colasar is dangerous. And yet he walked over to him calmly and said, we're going to have to go. And Keegan said, okay. And they went and they did that. And he didn't try and drop his gloves and get a punch in first. He didn't try to end the fight before it started. He took his gloves off and casually walked up and squared up against Keegan Colasar. I've got miles of respect for the confidence shown in that situation, but by the honor shown by Adam Lowry in that situation, by both guys taking part in this. This was Adam Lowry heading into a fight again with a guy who caught him and hurt him in the past, and he walked into it and handled it like that. That's how I think Logan Stanley should be looking at situations like that and trying to follow situations like that. Again, Adam Lowry is the North Star. I like the way he handled it. I like Luke Shen going after him and saying, this isn't done yet. This is you're going to pay the price, and if I can catch you, I'm going to catch you. I like how the Jets handled this, and I like how Keegan Colasar handled this afterwards for a guy who I am 100% certain didn't try to go out and hurt someone. He took his medicine, handled it well, continued playing, impacted the game. This is well played on all sides, the way that it was handled, a very unfortunate situation, Ken.
Yeah, no, I don't have many other things to add. And one place where it's apples to oranges for me is that, for me, the Tkachuks have often landed the first punch in their fights. So I think, and I said this the same thing on Saturday, I think Logan was more on alert for not wanting to get hit first, and not because he was scared to get into a fight with them, but I think that he thought it was escalating, and I think it turns out to be an unfortunate incident But yeah, I mean, of course you'd rather square off. But to me, it was.
I think you'll notice that in the vast majority of Adam Lowry fights, he's squaring off. And in the vast majority of Logan Stanley fights, he's dropping and throwing. There's a difference between the two.
Yeah, I mean, there were times earlier in his career, Sean, where he dropped and got hit a lot first. So, anyways.
Sure.
It definitely was handled properly in the game today.
No doubt. And I wanted to say handled properly all around. Just like Myers Drugs will handle all your pharmaceutical needs, your health food needs, your supplemental needs all around and all around the city, because they deliver anywhere in the city. So if you need any of those things, you can give Myers Drugs a call and they will drop it off right at your front door. Ken, time for the Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, to me, it was Dylan Sandberg had a bunch of plays in the game that were worthy, but I think it was his block of a one-timer by Jack Eichel that caught my attention. But there were a ton of really, really good plays, and I'm just going to go to that one. You may have a couple others because there were a few good candidates in the game.
No, what I was going to go with is I was going to go with the Winnipeg Jets defensive game at the start of the game, where I thought it looked like what they did last year, where they did such a good job of shutting down shooting lanes. Like they just were not allowing shots in, and the shots that Connor Hellebuyck was receiving were shots from distance, wide open, easy shots to handle. The degree of difficulty for Connor Hellebuyck was very, very relatively low for a good chunk of that game until about the end of the second period. And then the degree of difficulty got really, really high, which explains why he ends up with a less than 900 save percentage. But you've heard my take on it. I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's, very likely that you're going to see a lot of 60-minute complete efforts out of the Winnipeg Jets because they get tired, but that is definitely something. The blueprint of how they defended and shut down shooting lanes in that first period would be definitely something the Jets should be trying to follow, and they definitely had Connor Hellebuyck covered in that situation. No doubt about it in my mind. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? You need to look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. So visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And Ken, do you have a hashtag the keg save of the game that is
you bet
on this night?
Late in the second, seconds after Mark Stone made it a 1-goal game, there was Brett Howden in the slot with a really good scoring chance.
It was Howden,
on the sort of right wing side, and Hellebuyck kicked out the leg and was very sharp, and had to be, because even after giving up a late one in the second, if that game's 2-2, it had the potential to completely unravel for a team that had been pretty good for a good stretch of the first 35 minutes for sure. So yeah, that was definitely the one that caught my attention.
Yeah, I have to say this was.
It wasn't a highlight reel special. It was very timely, and I think it was one of the big and borings that Hellebuyck really stood tall on.
So you're nailing it with the timeliness of this. And if you have to hand something out here, I think, okay, you can go with that, because that save was timely. So timely save, I'll give it to that for that. I have to say on both sides of this, it was as vanilla a goaltending game as I can kind of remember witnessing in a Winnipeg Jets game. And it's hard to have a vanilla game because Connor Hellebuyck is just such a good goaltender. And when you've got the best goaltender in the world backstopping you, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of vanilla games. But it's interesting because what it's felt like was the shots that were saved were not overly trying shots, and the shots that were that weren't saved were kind of the team letting the goaltenders down, outside of the idea that floater by Luke Schenn is not a goal that should go in. I think Connor Hellebuyck wins the Sean Reynolds stat on this night. There's one other that I would maybe think of. It was a Mitch Marner shot.
That was a good one.
The third period, I'm trying to think of the context of it. He had a little bit of an open shot, stepped in, got a free shot away. Again, it's not the most high danger of chances, but it was one of the ones that stood out to me that they had at least had the opportunity. There's another one that gets shot, and I don't know who does it, but it goes off Connor Hellebuyck's stick. I think it's a fluke. It would have been going in the net, But, sometimes you can say when it comes to goaltenders, and goaltenders will sure tell you that, no, I saved that one with my stick. That's how I did it. Anyways, that is the hashtag keg save of the game for me. That's the hashtag keg save of the game for Ken. Doesn't matter what we think, matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag, the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And our winner from our last show, that would be Magic Johnson 75. Magic Johnson, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location, as you know, finer than the last. Ken, anything to say before we get going?
Yeah, just a couple of stick taps for folks who were watching the World Junior, obviously with certainly different interest than some years. I mean, obviously it's has interest in Manitoba generally, but given where the Jets are in the standings and with so many draft eligibles, people were watching closely, and also a couple of Jets prospects helping Sweden win a gold medal, including Sasha Boumedian. No push-ups for me today, Sean.
There you go. You got it.
He scored the game-winning goal, and Alphonse Frey had a really solid tournament as well.
He didn't score the game-winning goal, Ken. He scored the championship-winning goal.
Oh, even
huge difference. There's only many guys out there who score the golden goal or the champion. The CWG is a whole other
There
level.
You go.
Mikey G from Lactabani knows all about that. Guy barely scored a goal in his entire career, and yet he scored the CWG for the Lactabani Blues back in the day on a broken foot. Mikey G. So he knows a little something about that. And so too does Sasha Boumedian, Jets prospect. I did want you to weigh in on this.
Hey, we call that the Kenny and Renny bump, by the way, after Sasha joined us after the draft this year.
Yeah, no, he was lost.
Development camp.
He was lost without us. And now
that's not what I meant.
Yeah, no, it is what you meant, and I appreciate that you brought that into the conversation. It's nice for you to show up. Thanks for having us, Ken, and thanks for having me here. I did want your thoughts on your takeaway with the Winnipeg Jets being in last place in the NHL, the potential for them to have a first overall pick. What did you take away from the draft eligible prospects in that tournament, and which player you thought came out of that tournament as the player you think is the top guy to take?
Yeah, it's still a coin flip. And again, we know well enough. We've been around. We talked to people like Sammy Cosentino and Jason Bukala enough, and to know that you can't only look at the World Junior, and this is not the only thing scouts are looking at. But it's impossible not to notice Ivar Stenberg, the way that he played in the tournament. This is a guy who was there offensively producing. He plays a physical brand of hockey. You had a couple of Forsberg reverse hit. I think he had the reverse hit in the semifinal in the Finland game. He's a guy that is being counted on. Scored an important goal in the game. Scored the empty netter for insurance. He's a guy that had the coach's trust. He plays a two-way game. Strong physical guy. McKenna for me. I mean, I'm not as down on McKenna as some people. This to me is not a situation where. I'm going to use this. It's different players, but in terms of situationally, Sean, to me, this isn't a, Shane Wright or a Seth Jones scenario where the, guy who went into the year as the number one projected pick ends up being fourth. That I don't see. McKenna's not lighting it up in the NCAA, but let's not forget, let's not just lean into recency bias. This is a guy who had an incredible point streak last year and had over 150 points last year for the Medicine Hat Tigers. He had an important bronze medal winning game, and people can say whatever they want whatever you value that. I think that game's harder to play in than some of the others. Obviously still showed plenty of skill. And Sean, we've known this because we've seen it. When guys are under the microscope for 3-4 years, by the third and fourth year, you're just looking at the flaws. You're kind of forgetting some of the other high impact types of scenarios and plays. So, again, Verhoff, we didn't see as much. He didn't get much ice time at all in the semifinal. But again, this is a guy who's 6'4", right shot defenseman. So I think that you could, depending on where the Jets are picking, you could make a case for him quite easily as well. So all three of those guys caught my attention for different reasons. I don't know that there's a clear cut number one, and that's the beauty. There's half a season left, Sean. So in the next half season, someone has the opportunity to elevate themselves and separate from the pack, which is going to be hard to do.
All right. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to you and hop down off the fence that you're sitting on, and I'm going to have an opinion on this.
I had an opinion.
Gavin McKenna, we all know where this. Oh, you had an opinion. You said it's hard to. It's still
you asked me what I thought of all three of them, so I gave you my thoughts on all three. If I had the number one pick today,
you're picking first overall right now. Go.
I'm probably still taking McKenna.
Okay, good.
Aren't you?
All right, I love it. I like that.
I'm tempted to say Stenberg, but I've only watched him play one time.
Stenberg.
Okay, there you go.
And here's my reason why. Okay, Stenberg to me is okay. There's certain things that make players really good, and there's certain things that allow for a transfer to the NHL, right? And there's a lot of really, really skilled guys. And Gavin McKenna is clearly really, really skilled. Gavin McKenna also clearly has, really, really elite vision. He sees plays a lot of people don't. When you see someone like an example of that is a guy like Cole Perfetti, who scored like crazy in the OHL, right? Yeah. And he's got that vision. And when you see it, you can see how it works. And you saw it at the Manitoba Moose, but we've also seen the problems that Cole Perfetti has had graduating to the NHL level when you've just got that vision. Okay. One of the things that I think that makes players who are like skilled or whatever, but makes them really, really good. And one of the things that I think makes a player the kind of player that can transfer the skill set that they have to the NHL is those players that have, to use like a term that people use all the time, to players that have that dog in them. That dogged kind of pursuit that you're not going to be denied, and you're going to keep pushing and you're going to keep going. And that's to me the Sidney Crosby factor, right? Wayne Gretzky was a genius. He was just a hockey genius. And that's what made him good, because he thought the game on another level, probably 4 steps up from any player who's ever played the game. He was just that good and that smart at it, other than maybe Mario Lemieux. I think Mario Lemieux is the most skilled player of all time, but also thought the game that the way that Wayne Gretzky did, just maybe not at the same level, but was like so physically gifted, and that's what made him great. And then you start getting into these players, that have been great since. Sidney Crosby, the guy that stands out to me, he's just not going to be denied. He's a dog. He's just going to keep going to the net. He's going to keep hounding the puck. He's going to keep going. He's going to keep going. That's what makes him great. And I think, coming into the NHL, people thought, and not to say he's not doing great, but I think people never expected, I didn't, I don't think you did, I don't think most people did, expect Celebrini to get to a place where Bedard is as quick as he did, and probably is the more complete of the two players right now. And I think both those players have that dog in them. But I've also seen that Bedard kind of relies on his skill, but Macklin Celebrini has that dog in him, and it's what makes him great. Yeah, he's got a great shot. Yeah, he's fast. Yeah, he's skilled. Yeah, he sees things, but it's hard to outcompete that guy. And you saw it in the game that he scored the game-winning goal against the Winnipeg Jets, if you're seeing those things. What I saw from Stenberg, especially in that game leading up that got them into the final, was a player that had that dog in him. He wasn't going to be denied. You talked about that reverse hit. You talked about him driving the puck to the net. This guy was not going to be denied. And I didn't see a Canadian player in that semifinal game that had that to that level that Stenberg had. Like, look at all the great prospects on that team, like Haig and Iginla and Porter Martone and McKenna, and go on and on and on. None of those guys, the guy who was named the player of the tournament, he's the guy who drove on the Canadian defenseman and went around him and roofed it towards the end of the game there. That player was showing that as well. But if you're talking about draft eligible players, what I saw quite often in this tournament was similar to what I've talked about with Cole Perfetti in the past, that when the degree of difficulty went down, the points poured in. Hey, Gavin McKenna, I know that, and I'm not saying Gavin McKenna won't get there, and maybe his ceiling's higher, right? But what I'm calling this already. What you will see, I think, early on in Gavin McKenna's career is when the degree of difficulty goes down, Gavin McKenna is going to put the puck in the net and he's going to put it in bunches. I think it's going to take him some time to getting to a place where when things get really hard, he's able to find that as well. Because I didn't see that from him in this tournament. I didn't see him being the player that Canada needed him to be when things got toughest and when they needed them the most. Ivar Stenberg showed me what his skill set is. He showed me he had that dog in him. And I think that kind of player is the kind of player that, listen, this is one of those trade-offs, Ken. Gavin McKenna clearly has the potential to be the higher ceiling player. But what I walk away from that tournament is I walk away saying Stenberg is the guy that I know is going to go to the NHL and be an impact player and a hard player. May not end up as high as McKenna, but I think he's going to be a more impact player earlier and a more sure thing than McKenna would be, because there's as many guys as who can score the way that there's also guys who score that way. We're already seeing him get challenged at the NCAA level against bigger, tougher competition. So the thing that I'm talking about isn't just one tournament. He's being challenged by it, having left a younger league to a bigger, stronger league, and he hasn't adapted to it the way people thought he would. I expect a similar adaptation at the NHL level. And the problem with knowing guys need to adapt is it leaves a question mark of whether they'll be able to get to what you think that they can get to. I think there's less question marks about Stenberg doing that at the NHL level, which is why he'd be the first overall pick that I would take at this stage. And you know me, Ken, I am a fiercely proud Canadian. I'm almost always going for the Canadian prospect ahead of the other prospects. So it means a lot, I think, for me at least anyways, for me to go in this direction.
Well, we have good news. We're going to try to get some of our draft experts to weigh in, because we know that both Sammy Cosentino and Jason Buchla were at the event. Buch's from the beginning, and Sammy got there for the semifinals, I believe, or quarterfinals. So I'd like to hear them weigh in also. I mean, I'm with you. They're two great. We're going to try for Sunday because it's an afternoon game.
Well, let's just say this. This was my opinion, and if Books comes in and says,
and he agrees with me,
Books is a nice guy, and he'll come in there and he'll say, Renny, I agree with a lot of what you said, and you made really good points, but I'd go in a different direction, and here's why. Because he's a nice guy, and he doesn't want. But if Books comes in and tells me I'm wrong, I'm going to say, Books, I don't need to know anything more than you think that, and you're right, and I'm wrong, and I'll take the loss on this. That's how it'll go, because Books and Sammy know their stuff, and I don't have anywhere near the acumen that they do when it comes to breaking down guys. So we should get those guys, because I'd love to hear from them. It's been too long.
Agreed.
All right, time to shut this down. Thanks, everybody. Hope you're appreciating the conversations happening in this space, because we're sure having a lot of fun. In spite of what's going on, in spite of the 10-game loss, we still are having a lot of fun bringing this information to you and spending time with you. We hope you are doing the same, and we hope that you appreciate the conversations that are going on in this space. If you are, we hope that you would appreciate and to support our. Oh, you know what? I wanted to do this, Ken, just before I go, because Colin came and was talking to me about the him wanting to get the Tacoma, but I got the updated read here, and I wanted to do this just because I'm fascinated by electric cars, and Colin and I were looking them up in the intermission today, and it brings us to the fact that this January it's time to Toyota at Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent. You can finance the new 2026 BZXLE all-electric SUV from $158 weekly for 60 months at just 1.49% with $5,599 down payment. But hurry, offer ends February 2nd. Visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. Ken, the wife and I have talked this over. We're going with a hybrid electric RAV4, but when I saw this deal on today, it's the first time that I've been like, maybe it's time for an impulse buy and to come home and buy
Okay.
it and throw the bow on the top there so that she'll see it and then come out and be like that Saturday Night Live skit. I don't know if you've seen it, where it's like, what the hell are you doing? You made this major purchase without time. We don't have the money for this. You haven't been working for 3 months, kind of thing, right? But I've been tempted. Anyways, I was fascinated by this deal, and to be honest, when you're seeing rates, what was the rate here again? 1.49%. That's a heck of a rate. Anyways, that's it for us. Hope you appreciate the conversations happening in the space. If you do, appreciate our sponsors: Jim Pattison Toyota on Region, Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Ferland, Flame and Comfort, Myers Drugs, the Kenny and Renny OGs at the Johnston Group, and of course, the fine folks at the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. We will chat with you on Thursday when the Winnipeg Jets take on the Edmonton Oilers. We will talk to you later.